You've been staring at your phone for 20 minutes, typing something, deleting it, typing it again, deleting it again, and you know exactly who this is about. That one person who pulls you in and then disappears, who makes you feel everything and then acts like you feel nothing. You're not crazy, you're not weak, you're just dealing with something that most people never actually understand. And today, that changes, because I'm going to give you one single text, one that will get inside an avoidant's head and stay there. Not in a manipulative way, not in a game-playing way, but in a way that is so psychologically precise, so emotionally targeted, that they will not be able to shake it. So stay with me, because what I'm about to share with you is going to completely change how you see this whole dynamic. And more importantly, is going to change what you do about it. Before we get into the actual text, and I promise we are going to get there, you need to understand something first. Because if you send the right words without understanding why they work, you'll mess up the delivery. You'll add too much. You'll second guess yourself mid-sentence. You'll water it down. So bear with me for just a moment, because this foundation is everything. Avoidants are not people who don't feel. That is the biggest myth that keeps people stuck. Avoidants feel deeply, sometimes more deeply than the anxious person chasing them. The difference is what happens when they feel deeply. When you feel something big, you move toward it. You want closeness. You want connection. You want to resolve the tension. When an avoidant feels something big, something inside them gets triggered. An old alarm goes off. And that alarm says, danger, get space, protect yourself. And so they pull away. Not because they don't care, because caring feels threatening to them. Now, here is where most people go wrong. When an avoidant pulls away, the person who loves them starts to panic. And that panic leads to over-texting, long emotional messages, questions like, are you okay? Did I do something wrong? Can we talk? And every single one of those messages, no matter how innocent, no matter how loving, activates that alarm inside the avoidant even louder. It is the equivalent of someone being afraid of loud noises and you keep banging a drum outside their door. You think you're reaching them, but actually you are confirming their deepest fear. That closeness means losing control. That love means pressure. That connection means being trapped. So the text I'm going to give you does the opposite. It does not bang the drum. It does the thing that almost nobody thinks to do. It takes the drum and it puts it away, quietly, without making a big deal of it. And in doing so, it creates something in the avoidant's mind that is almost impossible for them to ignore. Curiosity, safety, and just enough emotional tension to keep them thinking about you long after they've read it. Drop the word curious in the comments right now if you want this to work. And make sure you've subscribed, because I go deeper into this kind of psychology every single week, and you do not want to miss what's coming next. Now let's talk about what actually goes through an avoidant's mind when they pull away, because understanding this is going to make the text make so much more sense. When an avoidant distances themselves from someone they actually like, it is not a clean, comfortable experience for them. That's another myth. People assume avoidants are just fine out there, living their best life, completely unbothered. And on the surface, it can look that way. But underneath, there is often a quiet war happening. Part of them is relieved to have space. Part of them is wondering if they made a mistake. Part of them is hoping you'll reach out. Part of them is hoping you won't. It is genuinely conflicted. And that conflict is actually your biggest opportunity. Because while they're out there in their space, what they're doing is monitoring. They're watching. They're waiting to see what you do. And what most people do is exactly what the avoidant expected. They chase. They get emotional. They make it all about the relationship and the feelings and the tension. And when the avoidant sees that, part of them feels vindicated. See, this is why I needed space. This is why closeness is overwhelming. This is why I keep to myself. Your reaction, even though it came from love, confirmed their story. But what if you didn't confirm their story? What if instead you disrupted it? What if the thing you sent was so unexpected, so counter to what they were anticipating, that it actually made them stop and go, wait, that's not what I thought was going to happen? That disruption is powerful. That disruption creates a crack in the wall. And through that crack, curiosity floods in. And once an avoidant is curious about you, once they are genuinely wondering what is going on with you, they start thinking about you in a completely different way. You shift from being a source of pressure to being a source of intrigue. And intriguing people are the ones avoidants cannot stop thinking about. So what is the text? Here it is. And I want you to read it carefully. Then I'm going to break down every single word and explain exactly why it works. The text is this. Hey, I've actually been in such a good headspace lately. I hope you're doing well. That's it. That is the whole text. Now, before you click away because you think that sounds too simple, too soft, too nothing, I need you to stay with me because the simplicity is the point. The simplicity is the weapon. And I'm going to show you exactly why this text is so precisely constructed that it hits every psychological pressure point an avoidant has without them even realizing it. Let's go word by word. Actually, word by word. The word hey is intentional. Not hi, not hello, not hey there or hey you, just hey. It is warm but casual. It is familiar without being heavy. It does not carry weight. It does not open a negotiation. It does not beg for attention. It just says, I'm a real person, reaching out like a real person would. No drama attached to this greeting. Just a light, easy, non-threatening opening. Now the phrase, I've actually been in such a good headspace lately. This is where the real psychology starts. Let's break this down piece by piece. The word actually is everything. That one word does something remarkable. It implies that this good headspace is surprising. That maybe before this there was something else going on. It hints at a story without telling the story. And the avoidant, who is already monitoring, already curious about what you've been thinking and feeling, immediately wants to know more, actually suggests there's context. And humans are hardwired to want context. We are narrative creatures. We need to complete the story. So the moment you use the word actually, you've created an open loop in their mind. And open loops demand closure. The phrase, in such a good headspace, is the most important part of the whole text. Here's why. The avoidant has been bracing for something. They've been waiting for the text that says, we need to talk. Or the text that says, I miss you so much. Or the text that says, I don't understand what happened between us. They have been prepared for all of those. They have their guard up. They have their exit ready. And then what do you send? You send something that says, I am doing well. Not, I am doing well despite you. Not, I am doing well and you should know that. Just a simple, clean, peaceful, I have been in a good headspace. That completely dismantles their expectations. Because now they cannot respond with distance the way they usually do. There is nothing to distance themselves from. There is no pressure. There is no demand. There is no emotional weight reaching through the screen and grabbing them. There is just someone telling them that life is good. And here's what's strange and beautiful about that. When someone who used to pursue you stops pursuing you and instead radiates something positive and peaceful, it creates an almost involuntary pull. The avoidant starts to wonder what changed. They start to wonder if something shifted for you. They start to wonder whether they are part of that equation at all anymore. And that wonder is exactly what you want, because wonder means they are thinking about you. And thinking about you means you are in their head. And being in an avoidance head without being a source of anxiety for them is one of the most powerful positions you can ever be in. The word lately is also doing quiet work in the background. Lately suggests this is not a one-day fluke. This is not a performance for their benefit. Lately suggests this has been going on. There is a sustained positive shift happening in your world, and that makes it more real. If you had said, I'm in such a good headspace today, it would feel reactive, like you're trying to show them something in the moment. But lately says, this has been brewing. This is real. And real is what avoidants are allergic to faking. They are extremely good at detecting performance. So the word lately takes the performance quality out of it and replaces it with something that feels lived in and genuine. Now the second part of the text. I hope you're doing well. This is where so many people would have gone wrong. This is where the natural instinct is to write something like, I miss you, or I've been thinking about you, or I wish we could talk. And all of those things might be completely true. But all of those things would have triggered the avoidance alarm system immediately. I miss you is pressure. I've been thinking about you is pressure. I wish we could talk is pressure. And pressure makes avoidance disappear. But I hope you're doing well. That's not pressure. That's warmth without need. That's care without demand. That's connection without grip. It says, I have positive feelings toward you, but I'm not asking you for anything. I'm not opening a negotiation. I'm not pulling you toward me. I am simply wishing you well from a place of genuine goodwill, and then letting it sit there, quietly, without expectation. And that is absolutely devastating to an avoidance emotional system, because what they have been trained to expect is need. Closeness equals need. Affection equals demand. Love equals losing independence. But this text breaks that equation. This text says you can have warmth from me and still be completely free. And for an avoidant, that combination is so rare, so disarming, so completely outside what they've come to believe about relationships that it genuinely stops them in their tracks. They will read it twice. They will put their phone down. They will pick it back up. They will read it again. They will wonder what to say back. They will think about it later that night. They will wonder if you are okay. They will wonder if something changed in you. They will wonder whether they should reach out. And all of that wondering is them thinking about you deeply, in a way that a long emotional message never would have accomplished, because that long emotional message would have given them something to react to. This text gives them nothing to react to and everything to reflect on. And reflection is where real feelings live. Now, I want to address something because I know some of you are going to think it. You're going to think this feels passive. You're going to think this feels like you're hiding how you really feel. And I want to reframe that for you completely, because this is not about hiding anything. This is not about playing games. This is about understanding what actually works and why. There is a difference between suppressing your feelings and choosing not to weaponize them in a moment of vulnerability. You are not lying. You are not pretending. If things have been genuinely difficult, you don't have to pretend they haven't. But what you're doing with this text is leading with your strongest foot. You are showing up as the most grounded, most centered version of yourself. And the irony is that showing up that way is actually the most honest thing you can do, because that grounded, centered person is in there. It may have been buried under anxiety and overthinking and heartache, but that person exists. And this text helps you lead with that person instead of leading with the wound. And here's the thing about wounds. We've all been taught, especially in this era of emotional openness, that being vulnerable means showing your wounds. But there is a more sophisticated kind of vulnerability that most people miss. And that is the vulnerability of being genuinely okay. Of saying, I have been through something and I have found my footing again. That kind of vulnerability is actually much harder to fake and much more attractive to anyone, but especially to an avoidant who has spent their whole life associating closeness with chaos. Let's talk about timing, because timing matters enormously with this text. This is not a text you send 2 hours after they've pulled away. This is not a text you send in a moment of emotional desperation, hoping it will pull them back. That would completely undermine the entire energy of it. The text needs to be true. The headspace you describe needs to be real, or at least in progress. So before you send this, I want you to do something first. I want you to actually work on being in a good headspace. I know that sounds almost annoyingly simple, but here's why it's so important. Avoidants are extremely perceptive. They pick up on emotional subtext in ways that most people don't even realize. If you send this text from a place of pain and desperation, hoping it will trick them into responding, they will feel that. Not consciously maybe, but something will feel off about it. Something will feel performed. And the moment it feels performed, it loses all of its power. But if you send this from a place where you have genuinely been investing in yourself, where you have actually been doing things that make you feel like yourself again, where the good headspace is not a complete lie, but rather a real direction you are moving in, then it lands completely differently. It lands with the weight of truth. And truth is magnetic. Truth is the thing that cuts through all the noise. So the first thing I want you to do before you think about sending this text is to go do something that genuinely lifts you. Something you've been putting off because you've been too busy monitoring your phone. A workout, a creative project, dinner with a friend who makes you laugh, a long walk somewhere beautiful. Anything that puts you back in your own life instead of living inside their head. Because here's a secret that goes deeper than any text strategy. The most attractive version of you is the version that exists independently. The version that has a life. The version that finds joy in things that have nothing to do with whoever is pulling away from you. That version of you is deeply compelling to everyone, but it is almost hypnotically compelling to an avoidant. Because avoidants are fundamentally afraid of being someone else's whole world. They pull away from people who need them too much, but they are drawn toward people who seem to have whole, rich, independent lives into which the avoidant would be a welcome addition, but not a necessary one. That's the energy. That's the position you want to be operating from. Not, I need you. Not, where did you go? But I have a whole life. And there is a warm, open door for you in it if you want it. That energy is what makes the text work. The text is the expression, but you are the substance behind it. Now let's talk about what you do after you send it, because this is where most people completely blow it. They send the text, and then they sit there, waiting, refreshing, staring at the screen, checking if the read receipt appeared, checking the timestamp, analyzing how long it has been since they sent it. And all of that anxiety, all of that desperate waiting seeps into your energy, and it undoes everything the text just did. So after you send it, I need you to put your phone down and actually go live your life. Do something, anything. Get absorbed in something else, not as a strategy, not as a trick, but because that is what a person who is genuinely in a good headspace does. They send a message and then they go back to their life, because their life doesn't stop for anyone's response. This is actually the most advanced thing I can teach you about dealing with avoidance, or with anyone who runs hot and cold with you. The goal is never to be so strategic that you win the game. The goal is to stop playing the game altogether, because when you stop playing, something shifts. When you genuinely stop needing the outcome of that one response to determine how your whole day goes, You radiate something that is almost impossible to manufacture. You radiate freedom. And freedom is the one thing an avoidant cannot resist. Because their deepest craving, the thing they have been seeking their whole life, is someone who loves them but does not cage them. And the only way to show them that is to actually be free yourself. Some of you aren't just dealing with someone pulling away. You're stuck in a cycle. They come close, you get hopeful, they pull back. You chase, they retreat further, and eventually they return, only for the pattern to repeat. The text we've discussed can interrupt that cycle, but it won't fix the deeper dynamic on its own. What it does is create an opening, and if they respond, what you do next matters just as much as the text itself. Keep the same energy. Light, warm, present, but not desperate. The temptation will be to unload everything you've been feeling or force a big conversation. Resist that urge. Let things breathe. Allow closeness to rebuild naturally before discussing deeper issues. The goal isn't to keep an avoidant thinking about you. It's to create enough safety that they genuinely want to come back. That's how real connections are built. But while you're focused on them, don't ignore yourself. Anxious and avoidant people often trigger each other's deepest fears. One chases because they fear abandonment, the other withdraws because they fear being overwhelmed. The cycle feeds itself. So ask yourself an important question. Why are you so drawn to someone emotionally unavailable? Is it familiarity? The thrill of brief moments of connection? Understanding your own patterns gives you something powerful. Not the power to manipulate, but the power to choose. I'm not telling you to stay or leave. I'm saying make your decision from clarity, not fear. When you understand yourself, you stop being controlled by someone else's behavior. Now let's return to the text. The core version is, hey, I've actually been in such a good headspace lately. I hope you're doing well. If it's been a long time, you can soften it. Hey, I know it's been a minute, but I've genuinely been in such a good headspace lately and just wanted to say I hope you are too. If there was tension before the distance, try, hey, I hope things are good on your end. I've actually been in a really good headspace lately and that feels worth something. The key is authenticity. The message should feel natural, not calculated. And if they don't respond, do nothing. Don't follow up. Don't send another message. The text wasn't a demand, it was simply a warm expression of where you are. If silence comes back, accept it as information. That said, avoidants often revisit messages later. They think about things long after the moment has passed. You can't control their timeline, but you can control the quality of what you put out into the world. And that's the deeper lesson here. You don't want someone who has to be manipulated into loving you. You want the real, grounded version of you to be seen and chosen. The text, the growth, the independence, all of it is about becoming someone who no longer needs to chase. Some avoidants will come back, others won't. Either way, your job is the same. Build a life that makes that good headspace genuinely true. Because the real payoff isn't the reply. It's returning to yourself. It's remembering who you are when you're no longer consumed by someone else's emotional unavailability. So if the timing is right and the feeling is real, send the text. Then go live your life. And whatever happens next, you'll be okay. Because your worth was never dependent on their response.